Good morning from Las Vegas. Just about, 30 hours away at this point, maybe even a little bit less. So that means it is time for the Super Bowl 58 prediction show. I've met so many cool people here in Vegas, but I think this one is going to go back to all the great people, all the great businesses back in the Bay Area in San Francisco, because what is about to happen tomorrow is a legacy game for the 49ers. It might be the biggest legacy game in their franchise history, but beyond what it means for the 49ers franchise, this means a whole lot to the community. And that's why we've spent so much time in the community this year. Going beyond that, that's why we spent so much time eating, drinking with the people in San Francisco and the greater Bay Area. And I know how much this means to everybody. I could say that a lot of you are probably nervous right now. And you're nervous because it means something to you. So because this means something to you, I'll try to put your minds at ease with a prediction. Now, the problem is a lot of people in Vegas asked me what my prediction was yesterday. And when I told them, they got even more nervous. So I'm not going to tell you just yet, but we did sample some prediction thoughts from multiple people leading up to this video. Anyway, right now up on The Athletic, you can go ahead and check out 49ers and Chiefs, 10 observations from Super Bowl week and our predictions from the game. If you're watching on YouTube, then the link to the article so you can subscribe is in the description. So go ahead and check that out. If you are subscribed, you already know my score prediction. But first, we're going to go through some of what this might mean to the city. I know that over the course of the past several months, we've been eating some good food in San Francisco. We're going to go through some of my favorite places. You always use the Super Bowl as a chance to promote spots. Anyway, Taqueria Cancun, as you guys know, thank you to them. They've been a big part of the show. After so much of my work, this is where I go to refuel, and these are the best burritos in the world. Taqueria Cancun, hands down. The chicken one, really good, but if you're in the mood for carne asada, you can go that way too. They have lengua, which is beef tongue as well. I've never tried that one, and that's definitely not pictured in one of these shots. But we'll go from Taqueria Cancun to our next stop on the tour, which is going to be a sandwich shop in San Francisco. And San Francisco, obviously, we've got some of the best sandwiches in the world. I think the 49er at Deli Board is a must try, and you're going to hear from Adam at Deli Board in just a bit. Jumpstart, of course, Jumpstart, they're one of the OGs. You're going to hear from Peter in a bit. That's the breakfast sandwich over at 24th and Guerrero. High quality on the croissant, San Francisco style. Of course, Sam's Burgers on Broadway. The OG double cheeseburger, one of Anthony Bourdain's favorite spots in the world. And they have the candlestick panorama with 2 new pieces of art put up ahead of the Super Bowl. There's Joe Montana at Stanford Stadium, 1984 season, and then Steve Young and Jerry Rice in the 94 season, 10 years later. You can tell because of the white uniform pants. And guess what? Sam's has just opened a new spot with Middle Eastern food called Sam's East right next door. There's some shawarma on Broadway. And there's one of the shawarma bowls on Broadway. It is legit, and they've got the mural up on the wall with Anthony Bourdain and, of course, with Mike. There's Emad, the owner of Sam's East. But I think that this was grand opening night. It was just before the Super Bowl, just before I left to Las Vegas. And I thought that this was a quintessential representation of the city. They've got the beautiful mural. And they've got the 2 men who really, really turned Sam's next door into the iconic spot that it is, along with that candlestick panorama, of course. So Anthony Bourdain up on the wall. So check out Sam's East over on Broadway. It's awesome. Emad actually has his mom making the hummus right now. Makes, I think, several pounds of hummus a day. It's homemade. I think they're going to have to train the kitchen staff how to do it so that they could continue mass producing that. But then this is Las Vegas. I'm going to go back here, and we're going to play some sound for you as we get to Vegas. Listen to this in Las Vegas at the Aria yesterday. So as you can tell, the town is on fire, and we're going through 2 towns right now. We're going from San Francisco. We're going to Las Vegas here. I feel that a lot of the Bay Area has come this way. I know that a lot of the Bay Area is going to be watching in San Francisco tomorrow. 3:30 kickoff. So a few thoughts, and I get into some of these thoughts in this 10 observations piece, 49ers against the Chiefs. It's been a super interesting week for the 49ers as far as there have been some difficulties, obviously. First with the squishy field that they had to deal with at UNLV, then with the fire alarm that got pulled at about 6:02 a.m. on Thursday. And then all the media obligations that the 49ers have obviously had throughout the week. It's the Super Bowl. It's not going to be a normal week, and they've had a couple extra wrinkles on top of that. But at the end of the day, the 49ers are here, and they are as healthy as they've ever been. I would say ever been in their franchise history. The injury list is non-existent. The only player that's technically on it right now is Kalia Davis, but that's because he's on IR and had his practice window open, and until he is activated to the 53-man roster, which I don't think the 49ers are going to do, but if until that activation happens, and they can do it here before the game, he technically has to be listed as questionable, but he is healthy. The players who are on IR, season-ending IR, somebody like Talanoa Hufanga, obviously I'm not talking about them, but the players ahead of games, when you talk about who's questionable, who's doubtful, that list is empty for the 49ers. And that's downright miraculous for a team that has dealt through so much adversity over the course of the past few years. And let's talk about that, because in Super Bowl 54, the 49ers were just 6 or 7 minutes away from reaching the mountaintop of Everest. But then it went really, really poorly over those final 6 or 7 minutes. Most organizations, most teams are going to die a very painful death after a loss like that. It is very, very hard to get back to a Super Bowl after you crumple in the final few minutes. But there's something about what this 49ers team has built on an organizational level that allowed them to withstand the gut punch that was the ending of Super Bowl 54. And that was a low point, but it wasn't, a quick turnaround from that point. Remember how tough 2020 was, not just for the 49ers, but for the world as a whole. I get 2020 was a crappy year, but that season for San Francisco, first, they were coming off of the marathon that was 2019. They suffered an NFL record amount of injuries as far as the amount of cash that went on injured reserve in that 2020 season. They went 6-10. They got exiled. They got banished by their own county to Arizona. They couldn't play or practice at Levi Stadium in Santa Clara County. So the 49ers had to go to Arizona for a month in December and essentially be locked up in their hotel rooms. That's how that miserable season ended for the 49ers, coming off of the Super Bowl loss to begin the 2020 calendar year to end the 2019 season. 2021, there was a lot of drama. There was some turmoil for the 49ers coming off of that 6-10 2020 season. That's when they made the big trade up to number 3. They picked Trey Lance. We had the offseason drama. That was mainly social media drama. The media didn't really understand what the 49ers were doing with Lance and Garoppolo, but it was okay. Went into training camp. It was a struggle in week 1 and beyond for the 49ers in 2021. They actually won their first 2 games. They beat the Lions, but the Lions almost came back on them in that week 1 game. Jason Verrett, I remember, got hurt in that week 1 game. Week 2 was a grinded out win over Philly. But then the 49ers started 3-5. And people thought this team was done. The vultures were circling at that point when they were 3-5. By the skin of their teeth, the 49ers turned it around, made it to the NFC Championship game. Remember the Week 18 game against the Rams that season that they'd had to win. They came from down 17 in the second half with Jimmy Garoppolo, Deebo Samuel, Jawan Jennings. Unbelievable plays for the 49ers to squeak out a win against the ultimate Super Bowl champions. But as we know, even despite the playoff wins over the Green Bay Packers and the Dallas Cowboys that season, the 49ers just ran out of gas. They pushed themselves too far up against the wall at the start of that season to where they didn't have enough energy to hold on in that NFC Championship game at SoFi Stadium. And that was another gut-punching loss because the 49ers blew another 10-point lead in the fourth quarter. So think of the adversity at this point that had racked up by this time of 2022, early in that year. The 49ers had lost Super Bowl 54, blowing a 10-point lead. They had gone through hell in 2020, and then they blew a 10-point lead in the NFC Championship game in January of 2022 to close that 2021 season. Fast forward to 2022, the 49ers, this time another slow start. They're 3-4. People thinking, okay, this is really it for the 49ers. We had more quarterback drama, right? Jimmy Garoppolo stayed aboard. Trey Lance was hurt in week 2. Brock Purdy was drafted this year, but little did, I think, anybody know. Maybe Kyle Shanahan knew in the back of his head that this would be a possibility at some point. But it was a big surprise when Jimmy Garoppolo also got hurt. And then Brock Purdy came in, took over, and lit the world on fire. And the 49ers had a 12-game win streak, and it seemed that they had finally arrived in the 2022 season. It seemed that they had finally, well, especially with the trade for Christian McCaffrey, which was one hell of a night for the 49ers, it seemed that they had the pieces in place to finally turn that corner, get the monkey off their backs, and win the Super Bowl. That being said, it wasn't going to be that easy because they went to Philadelphia in the NFC Championship game, and on the first drive, Brock Purdy tore the UCL in his elbow. So now we're just adding scar after scar after scar to the 49ers resume at this point. Super Bowl 54, NFC Championship game against the Rams, Brock Purdy's elbow. I mean, it's one thing after another leading up into this 2023 season. Most organizations wouldn't be able to bounce back from one of these gut punches, let alone the 3 that I just listed. And then there was a whole lot more drama in between all of them. But here in 2023, the 49ers came out roaring. Brock Purdy healed. I mean, it almost seemed miraculously quick, right? People were talking about him missing the first 4 weeks of the season based on some of their supposed timelines. But he was ready for week 1. The 49ers were ready for the season. They went 5-0 to begin. But then they hit that little bit of a lull. So it went to 5-3 after the 3-game losing streak. But one of the fascinating things that I really picked up here in Las Vegas is that the 49ers do not believe that they would be where they are right now, having overcome deficits in both of their playoff games. They do not believe that they would have reached this Super Bowl without the benefit of the adversity that they went through in those losses at midseason. That 3-game losing streak, that added yet another scar to the 49ers on top of those playoff losses that I just described before. That scar, the 49ers believe, is what has turned into the fuel for the fire that has gotten them to this point. And the playoff run that we've seen this year is already something that's going to go down in 49ers history. It's already a legendary playoff run. Now, it can really be immortalized if they win this game tomorrow. But think of what they had to do to get here. First, the game against the Packers, where it didn't seem very good for them when Aaron Jones ripped off that 51-yard run and the Packers were in field goal range, ready to go up a full 7 points. Obviously, the missed kick happened, but then Brock Purdy, in wet conditions, after playing a poor game, channeled his inner Joe Montana. Brock Purdy drove the 49ers straight down the field, and Christian McCaffrey, the other 49ers MVP finalist, punched it in for the touchdown. And then Jordan Love threw that interception to Dre Greenlaw, who just wouldn't get down for several seconds, adding to the stress of the moment, but that pushed the 49ers to the NFC Championship game. Then you had the Detroit Lions come in, and they gave the 49ers a true taste of their own medicine for the first 30 minutes. 148 rushing yards on 7 a carry. It was complete domination for the Lions. Put yourself back into your mindset about 2 weeks ago for that NFC Championship game. The Lions were completely dominating the 49ers at halftime. I don't think the game was as close as the 24-7 score would indicate. Whenever a team is rushing for 150 on you at halftime, you are getting your ass kicked. That it wasn't good for the 49ers. This was their backs were not only up against the wall, their backs were getting pushed out of the building. The win probability was not high at halftime of that NFC Championship game. I know people who were already pre-planning for the loss. The people were already starting to come to terms with what they thought was going to be a defeat. But what we saw in that second half from the 49ers is one of the most stunning reversals you will ever see at this level of football. And it took absolutely everything for them to reach the victory line. It took offense. Obviously, they moved to a more up-tempo approach in the second half, and that diffused some of Detroit's pass rush. It obviously took defense. It was horrific in the first half for the 49ers, and they had to tighten the screws in the second half, and of course, they forced the fumble Tashawn Gibson, the 33-year-old veteran, forced a fumble on Jahmyr Gibbs that Eric Armstead was able to recover that really set that comeback in motion. It took special teams. Remember that the Detroit Lions almost pinned the 49ers inside the 2-yard line with a punt, but it happened to bounce over the goal line, and because of that, the 49ers got a touchback and they got the free 20-plus yards. It took luck. That luck, though, was combined with skill when you think about Brandon Ayuk's catch, the one that bounced off of Kindle Wilder's face mask, and Brandon Ayuk was aware enough and reflexive enough to be able to dive and make the play. This was fantastic stuff for the San Francisco 49ers at a time when they needed absolutely everything. And they got absolutely everything. Brock Purdy delivered as well for them down the stretch of this game. He was 13 of 16 in the second half. He defied all of the critics, all of the hate that he's been getting. A lot of the narrative about Brock Purdy makes absolutely no sense, right? He wins with his arm. He wins with his legs. He wins with his mind. He combines everything. He wins coming from behind. There's been criticism that just doesn't fit with reality. But what the 49ers did in the second half of that game against the Detroit Lions is that they set the record straight. And they set the record straight all the way here to Las Vegas for Super Bowl 58. It is going to be the Niners and the Chiefs. And, I talk about the journey to get here. I talk about the scars that the 49ers have gone through, that they've picked up along the way. I think it's only fitting that the opponent is Kansas City, the team that beat them in Super Bowl 52, that gave them that first major scar. So now we arrive at the Super Bowl 4 years later, ready to watch the 49ers and the Chiefs go to battle. And we realize that both of these teams are different than they were 4 years ago. In a funny twist, the 49ers are actually the more explosive offense. They're the number one offense in the league. Kansas City was that elite offense in 2019. But Kansas City's defense has picked it up now. It's a whole lot better than it was in February of 2020. Brock Purdy is obviously now the 49ers quarterback. Patrick Mahomes is still on the other side. Travis Kelce is still on the other side. The 49ers still have superstars like Deebo Samuel and George Kittle. I think, though, their star power is a little bit bigger than it was before. But I do think that the biggest difference between 2019 and now is that the 49ers have Christian McCaffrey and the Chiefs no longer have Tyreek Hill. Remember, it was Hill's play that turned that game around in the fourth quarter. 3rd and 15 for the Kansas City Chiefs. Anytime a 49ers fan hears 3rd and 15, I think they get a little bit of PTSD, right? That kicks in. That was obviously one of the major turning points of that Super Bowl as San Francisco blew the lead. Kansas City had the most explosive weapon on the field 4 years ago. They have lost that most explosive weapon. He's now with the Miami Dolphins. The 49ers, meanwhile, have picked up one of the great offensive weapons in the history of the game in Christian McCaffrey. And I think, that is something that is a fulcrum. That is something that swings this in the 49ers' favor. So my prediction for this Super Bowl 58 is a relatively simple one, but it's one that will make you nervous. It's also an homage to the 49ers' history because all of this stuff is connected. The 49ers are going to win this Super Bowl 28-27. That obviously is the same score as what is, to the date, I think, the most iconic victory in 49ers history. Now, it just so happens that the game of the catch, which the 49ers won 28-27 against Dallas, was not a Super Bowl. But it's what got this entire legacy rolling. And now I see a full circle moment in that tomorrow might be the biggest legacy game in 49ers history. They've sold over 100,000 49ers jerseys since the start of the playoffs, over 25 million in jersey sales. It is a record. No other team has ever sold this much merchandise since the start of the playoffs. You go around the entire country. I get emails from people everywhere around the whole world, and people are talking about the 49ers, and people are trying. I think there's been a resurrection of the dynastic feel of the 80s and 90s that turned this franchise into what it is. So tomorrow is a chance for the 49ers to plant their flag in the ground once more and truly resurrect on a legacy-like level the dynasty that we saw born with 28-27 against the Cowboys back in January of 1982. And again, I will go back to what I said at the start of this video. This is not just about the 49ers franchise. This is about the community. This is about the Bay Area and the larger community around the country and around the world. That's what sports are all about. Sports are about connecting with people and allowing people to connect with each other. So along those lines, I know I showed you some of my favorite businesses, some of the best food, some of the best sandwiches in San Francisco earlier. I also went to those businesses and collected their predictions. And we're going to finish this 49ers Chiefs Super Bowl 58 prediction video with thoughts from around the city.
Luke Calvin Quinn. We're here at La Rocca's Corner, heart of North Beach. San Francisco 49ers going to win 35-31. Heard it here first.
Mike Roddy from La Rocca's Corner. My prediction for the Super Bowl is Niners 31-24.
Hey, my name is Fatty. I'm here at the Boys Deli, the owner of the Boys Deli, and my prediction is 34-13. Niners all the way. Let's go San Francisco.
Peter at Jumpstart Coffee and Groceries. Prediction for the game, 28-24 Niners.
All right, so I'm Imad El Shawa. I'm from Sam's Burgers in San Francisco. Niners are winning this 31-21.
I'm Adam from Deli Board, San Francisco. Bang, bang, Niner gang. I got the Niners 38-17.
Oliver Fader, San Francisco native for the Dolphin Club. Niners all the way, baby. 28-14. Niners, baby. Let's do this.